going on, ma'am?
I'm dying, that's what's up.
Irving Fire Department.
Ma'am, are you still there? Ma'am, are you still there? All I've got is she's telling me she's dying. I've got a, why are you still there, ma'am? Ma'am, what is your address? Ma'am.
The cab in our cab stand. Doesn't appear that there's a driver, but there are two people inside the cab, one in the passenger seat and one in the rear of the vehicle. One of the people in the passenger seat looks like she's hunched over, and she has blood coming from her ear. It doesn't look like they're alive to me.
I understand that. We've got our officers en route.
That 911 call that you just listened to were the final moments on Earth for one 17-year-old Sarah Saeed. Her and her sister Amina had just been shot multiple times by their own father, Yasser Saeed. Many online call this an honor killing, but there is no honor in killing. This was nothing but a cold-blooded double execution at the hands of an abusive demon. I'm Lamont at Large. Today, we start our video here in Irving, Texas at the site of the double murder. We're going to talk about this scumbag, his scumbag family. Let's get into it. Yasser Saeed was originally born in Egypt and came here to the United States in 1983 on a student visa. He came here, he settled in North Texas, and eventually met up with his soon-to-be wife, Patricia. Now, at the time of them meeting up, Yasser was 29, turning 30 years of age. Patricia was only 15 years old. Now, Yasser was dating this woman and asked her father for her hand in marriage. And her father, probably being the scumbag that he is, agrees to this nonsense. So by the time the marriage happens, you have a 30-year-old man marrying a woman that is 15 years younger than him. He's twice her age. Now, when he was courting her, he told her family, oh, you know, my family is very rich in Egypt. They own a lot of land, that they have good jobs. I could provide for her. I could take care of her. She would never have to work ever again. He played the nice guy role to a T. When they get married, all bets are off. His true colors come out. First of all, you're 30 years old and you're marrying a teenager. You're a sick bastard. The abuse immediately takes place. He forbids her from having any contact with her own family. He tells her, my family is your family now. You no longer know those people. They are not your family. I'm your family. So over the subsequent years, they have 3 children, one right after the other. They had a boy, his name was Islam, and they had 2 girls, Amina Saeed, and Sarah was born right after her. This guy was nothing but a pervert and a rapist. He would be doing very, very inappropriate and creepy things. He would take pictures of his daughters. He would take video of his daughters, commenting, making very inappropriate comments about their bodies, about their looks. And of course, there were allegations of molestation. One of the girls had told their grandmother that Yasser had touched them and had done other things to them. Now, the family had contacted the Hill County Sheriff's Department. They went down there to file a police report. Now, get this, because I don't know how this happened, but they recanted their confession. Obviously, Yasser either threatened them or what have you, and the police, the sheriffs, they allowed them to recant their confession. So no real investigation was done. And as the years gone on, Yasser is getting more and more disgusting, more and more controlling. He was very, very strict on his daughters, would hit them, beat them. Of course, worse, the other things. He did not like them associating with other people that were not of the Muslim faith. As they got older, Sarah and Amina, They're becoming teenagers. They're living in the United States. They don't identify with the Muslim culture. Just like regular teenagers, they want to go out with their friends. They want boyfriends, so forth and such. As the girls got older, Yasser tried to become even more and more controlling. He would check their phones, check their email accounts. One of the girls, Sarah, had gotten an after-school job at a convenience store. This demon would sit at the parking lot of the convenience store and videotape her. And then when she would come home, he would tell her, "Oh, hey, you're smiling too much at the customers," or you're doing this too much, or you're doing that too much. This guy is the epitome of an absolute control freak. Both of the girls had their little boyfriends, like a lot of teenage girls do. And on Christmas of 2007, he found it's either an email or a text message from one of the girls' boyfriend. These girls, along with their mother, lived in absolute terror for the better part of all their lives and half of the mother's life. There was many, many nights where Yasser would beat his daughters unmercifully. There was a couple times where he even pulled out his gun and pointed it at his daughters. One time, Yasser found some kind of a communication, either an email or a text message between Amina and one of her boyfriends. And that was an instance where he pulled out a gun on his daughter. Finally, they had enough of the abuse. They had enough of them being woken up in the middle of the night and being beaten on and yelled at and talked down to and threatened with his gun. So finally, the family decided, that's it, we gotta leave. We gotta go. So they ended up going to one of the girls' boyfriend's family's friends' place up in Tulsa, Oklahoma. So they're over there. The mother and the two daughters, they flee. Originally, the girls, they were gonna just them two go. They were gonna leave their mother, but they felt bad. They loved their mother. They didn't want to leave her with that son of a bitch. So they're up in Oklahoma, and Patricia decides, yeah, I gotta go back. It's the holidays, blah, 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 whatever. Now, I don't know if more than likely Yasser got into her ear. Please come back, blah, blah, blah. I'm sorry. I won't do that ever again, yada, yada, yada. So she convinces one of her daughters, Sarah, to come with her back to North Texas. And she told Amina, please come back with us. She said, hell no. She goes, I'm done. I'm done with you guys. So eventually they come back. They convince Amina to come back. Now the mother could have saved her daughter's lives and just said, no, that's it, we're done. But the mother definitely had a hand in ending her daughter's lives. They come back to North Texas. Yasser says, oh, things are going to be different. I'm so sorry. I'll never do it again. Whatever song and dance he's doing, but he has no intention of letting things go. On New Year's Eve, 2007, he tells his daughters, hey, listen, let's go out to dinner. Let's talk. Just you and me. Things to talk about. Now, the mother supposedly wanted to go along, but he said, no, just stay here. I want a private conversation between me and my daughters. And at that time, Yasser was a taxi cab driver. And a lot of times he would pick up people at the Omni Hotel, which is this place right here. This was his area that he liked to work. And as you can see, you got a cab stand right there. You got a lot of taxis, not so many right now, but you'll have taxis coming over here and they'll stage right over there where those cars are, where you see those people walking, and they'll just wait for somebody to need a taxi. Of course, now the taxi business is a lot. Change has happened ever since Uber and Lyft arrived, but you can imagine this was his favorite spot to pick up people. So he takes his daughters on the pretense of wanting to go out to dinner. Things are going to change. We're going to be a family. I'm going to stop being an abusive creep. So they're riding in the back of his taxi. He brings them to this hotel right here. Brings them possibly to this parking lot. I'm not sure exactly what location, but a parking lot on the grounds of this hotel right here. He turns around, pulls out his gun and shoots his 18-year-old daughter, Amina, twice. Turns the gun on Sarah and shoots her 7 or 8 times. It could have even been 9. After he's done murdering his daughters, he gets out of his car and walks away like nothing happened. And that is where you heard the 911 call. Sarah pleading for help, screaming, telling the operator, "I'm dying." She had been shot multiple times. And Lord knows how she had the strength to even make the call, pointing the finger of blame at her own father, Yasser. By the time ambulance came to this scene, both girls were dead. So you have them dead in their father's taxi cab. You have the 911 call from Sarah saying, "My father just killed me," in a sense. And a warrant for double murder for Amina and Sarah Saeed is put out. The warrant's put out for Yasser Saeed. And this case, other than the religious tones behind it, this case got very well known other than that fact, because this animal was on the run for about, I want to say, well over a dozen years off the top of my head. And I, always interested in crime and why people do things. I had paid attention to this case for many, many years. Now, when you get on the FBI's most wanted list, there's a good chance that you're gonna get caught, but sometimes you don't. Him being from Egypt, I, like everybody else, thought he simply just fled to his country. He's probably hiding in Egypt under a fake name, fake ID, maybe. He borrowed his brother's documents to make a whole new identity. Who knows what goes on in Egypt, and if you have enough money, what you could possibly do. The only problem with that was that the FBI had absolutely no proof that he left the country. There was no documentation on his passport, in the computers about him leaving the country. So the FBI, they were absolutely stumped. How did this guy for over a dozen years or so stay on the FBI's most wanted list and keep a low profile? His picture was all over social media. I mean, if you have not heard about this case, then you probably, maybe you're not into true crime as much as you think you are, because everybody pretty much knew about this case. So obviously, if you are able to elude authorities, the FBI, along with the police department, pretty much all the police departments in North Texas, there's only one answer, and that is because your loser, scumbag, disgusting, creepy family, the Saeeds, they're helping you elude capture after you murdered your own daughters. Like I said earlier in the video, people would think that this guy would have went back to his home country of Egypt. Nobody would have ever guessed that of all the places that the FBI were told that he could be, Canada, New York, just wherever there's a large Muslim population, no one would have ever guessed that for those dozen years, he was hiding no more than 20-25 miles from where he murdered his daughters. This is the Copper Canyon apartment complex here, and this is where Yasser's son Islam lived. Now, when he lived here, the management of the complex, they were very well aware of who he was. Like I said, this story was very, very well known. And on August 14th of 2017, one of these apartments in this complex, Islam had put in a work order to have something repaired. So the maintenance man that worked here at this Copper Canyon apartment complex went upstairs to fill the order. He knocks on the door, nobody answers. He has a key, he's allowed to be, go inside the apartment. But he notices that it's locked. So, they know that the maintenance men are coming, but somebody deadbolted the door from the inside. So he knocks again, and an older Arab man opens the door and allows him to come in to fix whatever needs to be fixed. Now, the maintenance man is like getting really nervous because as he's working in there, he says, this looks like the guy that killed his daughters. But he's not quite sure because now it had already been about 9 years since the murder. He looks a little bit different, but he's pretty sure. So he tells the guy inside, he said, hey, I'll be right back. I forgot something, whatever. He goes to the manager's office and he says, hey, listen, the guy in that person's apartment looks just like the father who murdered his daughters back before. So the manager goes on the computer and they start looking at his FBI wanted poster. And she says, are you sure that's him? He says, yes. He goes, that's him. He's here right now. Immediately they call the FBI. The FBI comes and they knock on Islam's door. It's around 6:30 p.m. right now. Islam opens the door and they said, hey, yeah, we want to talk to you about your dad. And all of a sudden, this guy gets very defensive. He refuses to let them inside. He refuses to speak to them. He asks them to leave. He pretty much shuts the door in their face. Now, me personally, if I'm an FBI agent and the son of a man that is wanted for double murder, you would think that one of the agents would just sit in the car outside that apartment and keep surveillance. Well, unfortunately, nobody was thinking along those lines of just keeping an eye on this guy because he's acting very, very suspicious. The FBI agents leave. They leave to go get a warrant to search the apartment. They couldn't get the warrant. It took about 6 hours. By the time they got the warrant from the judge and they get all of the agents to come out here, it's already 1:30 in the morning. They breached the door. Nobody's home. And they're searching everywhere, nothing. So they get they basically take everything out of the apartment. They take toothbrushes. They notice that there's cigarette butts on the balcony. And one of these apartments right here, because he was on the second floor, they noticed that outside of the balcony is a bush that has a bunch of broken branches, looking like somebody jumped into the bushes, and they see a pair of eyeglasses. And it wasn't known to the FBI that Islam wore these kinds of glasses. They might have been readers. I'm not terribly sure. They take the cigarette butts, they take the toothbrush, and they send it into a lab for DNA analysis. And long story short, it comes up that the DNA on those toothbrushes and the cigarette butts matches that of Amina and Sarah Saeed, matches where it would be the parent of one of the daughters, basically saying it's Yasser Saeed's DNA on those cigarette butts and the toothbrushes. If only the FBI would have had the foresight to, at bare minimum, at least contact the police department here in Bedford and say, hey, listen, we have reason to believe that this man who's wanted for a double murder is in such and such apartment. We're requesting assistance with one of the officers if they could just sit, watch the apartment for a few hours until we get the search warrant. I don't know why the hell nobody did that, but they did it. And it would be roughly another 3 years, almost to the day, that eventually they were able to catch Yasser Saeed. So we're gonna go to that location right now where he was arrested. 3 years after the FBI almost caught Yasser Saeed, it had come to the FBI's attention that Dalal Saeed had purchased a house here in Justin, Texas. Dalal is the daughter of Yassin Saeed, who is the brother of Yasser. So the FBI started surveilling the house. Now on one night, they seen Yassin and Islam bring groceries into the home, and they stayed there for a few hours. They came out with a couple bags of trash, and then they left. The following night, they repeated it again. They came back with some bags of presumably groceries. They came back out with more bags of trash. However, this time, the FBI followed Islam for about 20 minutes or so. He drove to a shopping center and had dumped the trash in the shopping center's garbage can. The FBI quickly got the garbage out of the garbage can. They went through it, of course, found cigarette butts. They took the cigarette butts to the lab to have it tested for DNA. And lo and behold, guess whose DNA are on the cigarette butts? That's right, Yasser Saeed. The same DNA that matched back in 2017. So they get a warrant to search the house here on 712 West 1st Street. They raid the house, and guess who they find after all these years? The murderous scumbag himself, Yasser Saeed. He gave himself up without any kind of fight from what I've seen online. And he was taken down to the jail and booked on 2 counts of first-degree murder. And this is the house where Yasser Saeed was hiding probably for the last 3 years that he remained free. Now, this house, I don't know if it's still owned by the daughter or not, but what I want to know is, why isn't she in prison? Because as far as I'm concerned, the whole family should be in prison. All these scumbags. If this house is occupied, it does not look really lived in, and I don't really see any ornaments or decorations in the house. It does not look like it is a house that is lived in. And the backyard right here looks very well unkempt. So I would go out on a limb and say that nobody lives here anymore. Okay, we are going to take one more trip. We're gonna go visit the final resting place of Amina and Sarah. This is the final stop. We are at the Muslim cemetery here in Crum, Texas. And just to let you guys know what ended up happening to the people who hid this monster for the 12 years he was on the run. Yassin Saeed, Yasser's brother, ended up getting 12 years in prison. And Yasser's son, Islam, the man who helped hide his dad that murdered his own sisters, he received 10 years in prison. And these are the graves of the Saeed sisters, Amina and Sarah. I wonder how many times that demon that took these young girls' life, how many times he came here to see what he done. How many times did he stand right where I'm standing? Did he think to himself, I did a good job? There is a special place for twisted monsters like him, and it's only straight down. No stops along the way. Rest in peace to both you, Sarah and Amina. Okay, guys. I'm out of here, Lamont at large. I will catch up with you on the next vlog. Be good, y'all. Peace out.